Well, I think we're ready to get started this morning. Happy Monday morning to you. Good to be back on the deep dive and getting started this week talking about one of the most, I think, important topics in real estate. We're going to talk about a bright spot in the market right now, and that's rising inventory. I'm going to break all of that down. But as we do that, let us know where you're watching from. It's always so good to see folks from all over the country that join the deep dive as we talk about some of the most important topics in real estate, so that you can have the confidence really to step out in the market and say, I know exactly what's happening. And so that is why we do this. And that's why that's what drives everything that we do at Keeping Current Matters, for you to have confidence, to have more conversations, ultimately to help more families buy or sell a home. So good to see folks this morning. Great to be on. I've been on the road for a few weeks, and Alex and Kate have held down the deep dive, done a phenomenal job, but good to be back and good to be talking about a bright spot in the market. So we'll do that actually as well. I'll just mention this around 1 o'clock Eastern today, 10 Pacific. I'll go live with Tom Ferry talking about tariffs and mortgage rates, everything, the headlines that are out there in the market, so that you have all of that as well. So if you have time, make time for us to, or make time to join that time with Tom. So we'll do that today. So I'm going to share my screen, get us started talking about this bright spot in the market. Rising inventory is a bright spot in today's market. I think that's true. There was a time certainly where homes were selling so fast we didn't have the inventory we needed. And I'm going to, if you'll sort of follow this story here for the next few minutes, I'm going to break down exactly what's happening with inventory. And here's what I believe it's going to show us. It's going to show us sort of the cycle that we've come through in real estate. And I think being able to explain this right now to clients is really important. It positions you as the expert. It positions you as really the knowledge broker in today's market. And I think there are a couple slides in here too that, if you were asking me, I would add them to your listing presentation, even for buyers right now, to your buyer's presentation. So pay attention to that. If you're a KCM member, you can always go in and grab all of the slides and use those. If you're not a KCM member, we'd love to have you join. You can always start a free trial. Check it out, and we'll get going with that. So first quote here from Realtor.com: buyers had more homes to choose from in March, with the number of homes actively for sale up 28.5% compared to the same time last year. This marks the 17th month in a row of year-over-year inventory growth. I got to be honest, when our KCM research team found this and I read that, I didn't know that. 17 months in a row of year-over-year inventory growth. That's pretty unbelievable. We're coming out of this cycle in real estate where inventory was depleted, mortgage rates fell, everybody jumped in and said, we'll buy a home. And obviously things have changed. Mortgage rates have risen. That's sort of squelched a little bit of the business, and things are staying on the market longer. But, active listings up right now, month over month or year over year, and the 17th month in a row there. Also, this was interesting too. I love when our research team finds these things, these little nuggets. New listings are up over the last few years. This is a look at March of each year. So go back to 2017. We say 2017, 2018, 2019, the last three normal years in real estate. And then you come into the pandemic year, and then we start to deplete inventory, and you can even just visually see it. New listings up over the last couple of years, really on par with where we were in 2022. More people saying, we're going to put our home on the market. And again, going back to that original sort of statement, that is a good thing for buyers. That means there's more choices. That means there are things that they have to sort of look at and not make a rush decision. Redfin said this: housing supply has slowly made a comeback from 2021, which is good news for buyers. More sellers are listing their homes. The share of homeowners with pandemic-era mortgage rates, often less than 3%, is fading. I don't know if I would use the word fading. There's still a tremendous number of people out there across the country that have a great mortgage rate. And that's a good thing for homeowners. I've made the case oftentimes that we live in one of the strongest real estate markets under the surface, with a number of people that have a preferred mortgage rate, the enormous amount of equity that's in homes today. And good for them, right? Causes challenges sometimes, but good for them. But no doubt there are people that are making a different decision now relative to their home and really where they're going to be. One of the best questions, I've been on the road for the last 7 or so weeks at different conferences. I'll be on the road this week and in Phoenix and in Tucson. I don't know if anybody's watching will be out there, but love to connect. But here's one of the questions that somebody brought up while I was at an event to ask somebody that's in that situation, as a 3 or 4% mortgage and says we're not going anywhere ever type of thing, is what are the chances you'll be living in this home in 5 years? Let me say that again. What are the chances you'll be living in this home in 5 years? Because if you ask that question, it takes it from a yes or no to a timing question. Is now the right time? Is a year or 2, 3 years the right time? If they say, the probability is low that we'll be living in this house, then I can have an intelligent educational conversation with them, talk about appreciation, talk about mortgage rates. And I think that's going to be the key to working with people as the next year comes through. I don't think everybody's going to say, hey, we have a 3% mortgage rate, we want to walk away from that. But life events will cause people to say, you know what, we are going to do something. Hannah Jones said this continued rise in active inventory is in part due to less active buyers. With more choices available, buyers can afford to be more selective, putting pressure on sellers to price competitively. I think across the country, by and large, we're not in a strict buyer's market or seller's market. There are those, but we're entering into a more balanced market, where things are staying on the market a little bit longer, price concessions are a little bit more normal, and expect that continue. Now, I mentioned as I was starting off, going to be on with Tom Ferry here in just a couple of hours, talking about tariffs, mortgage rates, and all that. I do expect that we'll continue to see volatility this year with all of the headlines and all the uncertainty as well. So it is the market that you have to be able to have the conversation in, but also speak intelligently about exactly what is happening. So let me maybe take a moment here and explain to you sort of the position that we're in inventory. So I've talked about a couple of things. I've talked about active listings, how they're up. Talked about how new listings are up. I'm going to take a look here at total listings and sort of describe where we're at in the market right now. And if you'll kind of follow along with this, I think you'll see it. It'll be something that you can explain to the clients that you're working with as well. And again, if you're watching the deep dive right now and somebody in your office or somebody that needs to hear this, share this message or even tag somebody or tag your office in this in the comments. So let's start off right here. As a total listing count, it's increased by 17% compared to last year. So let me use my cursor here. This is this year, the yellow line, March of 2025. You see that 17.3% year over year growth in total listings in this country. Now, this is a look going all the way back to 2017, the seasonality of listings. And it kind of starts off slower in January, peaks sometime in the spring and summer months, and sort of tails off as we go throughout the year. That's how listing inventory kind of goes. Happens that way just about every year. Now, we've been through some very different years over the last several cycles, last several years post-COVID. That have thrown that off. But the dividing line gets very interesting if you look at this. It's this red line. That's 2020. That's the COVID year. Let's hope that we don't go back there again. None of us want that and a pandemic to hit. Everything below the red line is 21, 22, 23, and 24. Okay. And everything above the red line is 2017, 2018, 2019. It sort of makes this dividing line. And oh, by the way, we're right here this year in 2025. Now, why is this important? Well, if you start to look at forecasting, if you followed KCM, we've done a lot of work on what to expect for the rest of this year, what to expect in 2025. Inventory growth forecasts from Altos, from Adam Data, from Realtor.com, those that forecast are somewhere between 10 and 15% growth in inventory, total listings So if we play that out, and if we even say conservatively, if we grow an inventory by 10%, this is what this looks like. Our team built this. Now, what's interesting here is we kind of go throughout the year. You see that growth in inventory, but we end the year, again, let me bring my cursor over here, right here, in the neighborhood of where we were in 17, 18, and 19. Okay. So this is so important because if you start to look at this and understand it, it shows the 5-year cycle we've been in from 2020 to 21, 22, 23, 24, now 25, inventory being depleted and now building back up. Okay. Which, oh, by the way, is a signal of a more healthy market. That's the word I'd be using as I talk to people is, this is a healthier market. Listen, a lot of people made a lot of money in 2020, 21, 22, and certainly in the last couple of years. If you didn't, I'm sorry about that. But as we get back to a more healthy market, prices don't rise as quickly. Oh, by the way, that's a good thing. Prices are moderating across the country. Inventory is replenishing. Oh, by the way, that's a good thing. It's a more healthy market. And that's what we want to see. But you can see it right here in the inventory graphic that our team built that really sort of, the old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. It's contained right here. And I think adding a couple of these to a listing presentation or a buyer consult, or even having some of these facts handy as you have conversations are going to be key. One of the things that we're working on right now, and stay tuned for it. Many of you on the deep dive have gotten a pre-look at it, but we're building resources to help you have more effective conversations so that you can step into a gathering, a cocktail party, or just somebody that you're talking with and say, hey, let me share a few things with you about something that's happening in the market right now. But this look at inventory, when you start to break it down, it's very interesting, shows the 5-year cycle we've just come through in sort of inventory depletion now being rebuilt up. One of the reasons for that, Realtor.com, in March, the typical home for sale spent 53 days on the market, 3 days longer than the same time last year. Not a tremendous jump, but things are staying on the market longer. This marks, listen, the 12th consecutive month where homes have taken longer to sell compared to the year before. However, homes are still moving faster than they did before the pandemic, with days on market 9 days shorter than the 2017, 2019 average. Remember, I said that's the last 3 normal years in real estate. These facts are important, right? Inventory is growing. People are putting their homes in the market, but they're sticking on the market a little bit longer. If we start to take a look at this sort of graphically, what this looks like, those years prior to COVID, 62, 65 days, we've now come back, 53 days, still relatively quick for homes to be selling across the country. And, it's one of those things where as we start to take a look at this, we can go, okay, here's what's happening in the market. And I think it's important for this. It helps us, for buyers and sellers, set the right expectation. You can help them go, okay, look, things are staying on the market maybe a little bit longer. Bring in, out of your local market, here's how long things, maybe in this particular zip code or whatever the case is, here's how long they're staying on the market. Every time that a client that you're working with turns on the news, they're educated at the national level. Your job, our job, is to bring in our local expertise and say, this is exactly what's happening. But this picture becomes clear. New listings growing, active listings growing, total listings making their way back. All these signs point to a more healthy real estate market, things hanging on the market a little bit longer. Now, transaction volumes, we will sell more homes this year than we did last year, but still lower than several years ago. We'll continue, I believe, year after year to build back from a volume standpoint and sell more homes in this country. Lawrence Yun said this: more inventory is certainly good news for home buyers. It gives consumers more properties to view before making a decision. That is absolutely true, and I think that is something that we want to share out in the market. Bring in your local inventory numbers and say, hey, look, there is good news right now in this in this market. Lance Lambert does a phenomenal job with Resi Club. The fact that inventory is rising year over year strongly suggests that national active housing inventory for sale is likely to end the year higher, just like what we said, and gave you a graphic to sort of represent that. I think Lance and his team do a phenomenal job in sort of analyzing prices and inventory and all those things. Grateful for all that work that they do, but I think he's absolutely right here. We will end this year higher in inventory, very close to where we wrapped up the years prior to COVID. All of that pointing to good things in the housing market. If you're on the deep dive this morning, we are so grateful for your support of what we do at Keeping Current Matters. Grateful for everybody out there. It's great to be back, honestly, and do the deep dive. And we do it all for this founding sort of belief. Steve Harney, that founded KCM over 17 years ago, he said, I believe most agents know what's happening. Good agents really understand what's happening, but only great agents can explain what's happening. My hope is, our team's hope is, that after the deep dive today, you can explain what's happening in inventory. If you want to go back and watch it, do that. It'll be here on Facebook. Share it with somebody on your team so that we get this information out in the market so that folks are educated. I always tell people, if you were here in our office in Richmond, Virginia, we have a wall that says we believe every family should feel confident, whether buying or selling a home. And that's what drives the work we do. I hope you have a wonderful week, and see you back next week on the deep dive. Take care.